we send a handful of agents up there.
They
Hey,
appreciate
man.
Dad because Ted trusted him. I mean,
Hello.
Hey,
Ah,
I can't see
ah,
your face.
ah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Have you eaten, James, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah? And do you have a
yeah.
drink?
I have a drink.
Well, cheers.
Cheers, man. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
How's your week been?
Yeah, it's like the work side of things is fine. Um, it's busy enough that I feel like I've got a job, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
getting busier.
it's getting busier, and you know, I'm enjoying it. You know,
Cool.
it's nice to have the job coming back in to kind of give a less of a fear of uh, everything falling apart,
Yeah, yeah.
like a sense of desperation about everything.
There's
Uh,
no question of furloughing and stuff at this
no,
point.
no, no, no question of furloughing. I mean, with what's going on in the US, who knows what will happen actually with the company because things are just getting shut down again. California's completely in lockdown. You know, Los Angeles is a massive metro
Mm.
revenue-wise for us.
So they're locked down in terms of what restaurants are closed, are
Yeah,
they?
yeah, everything.
Oh, right. Wow. I didn't realize that.
Florida has gone back into lockdown. Texas, Arizona, it's fucking
Yeah,
ravaging the population on every level in the US, like economically and health-wise, the works.
yeah. Oh, God, I didn't realize that was all happening. It's happening a bit here as well, isn't it? In up north. I don't think it's affecting
People are so much more friendly
restaurants.
in the north.
Yeah, that's it. They got too many friends. I
Yeah,
was just saying that to Kat. She was saying, "What's the issue?" And I was saying, just my experience of Northerners, just my own experience is that they are so much more sociable.
yeah.
And,
They, yes,
so yeah,
they live in communities of friends
mm,
rather than communities of strangers.
yeah.
You know, it's different. But oh, and have you heard aliens are real?
No, I got your texts. What's that?
Aliens are real.
Right. Okay.
So there was there was an article in the New York Times, which I know at times is not the greatest, but they were reporting basically on a Senate hearing where a director of a former government body, um, uh, and this has been declassified, like this is public knowledge,
Mm,
the UFO program or the identification program they were running as a body in the government has basically confirmed that they have off-world craft. That's what he said. Basically confirming what Bob Lazar said way back in the early 80s was true.
no way.
Yes, way.
At Roswell,
Why I'm so
presumably.
anxious to talk to you. Aliens are real.
But well, this hasn't been on the fucking. It's not been in the Guardian.
It's not been in the Guardian, James, but it's happened.
They have off-world craft.
Off-world craft, and they've also confirmed. I mean, like last year, they confirmed that. So before the whole coronavirus and like whatever one of the thing you wanted. Anyway, that those Tic Tacs and the gimbal, those sightings by the Navy pilots where they're tracking these weird objects over the ocean. Have you seen those
Mhm.
videos?
No, not really. I've seen bits and bobs on YouTube, of sightings and whatever,
Yes.
but
There's well, no. So there's I think there's five videos that were taken from the cockpits of basically a F-18 um, fighter jets, which are basically Navy carrier strike jets. And they're doing
mhm,
maneuvers over the east and west coast of the US. And the radar technicians on the Nimitz and another ship, I can't remember what the name of it, on the east coast, but it was the Nimitz on the west, I think, um, had been reporting these sightings of objects moving erratically in the radar. Now, radar is inherently kind of weird anyway,
mm.
so, who knows. But they had sent pilots out that were on maneuvers, and they said, "Well, look, go check this out because there seems to be something going on the ocean." Like, and so the pilots fly over there, and obviously they've got these camera units on every plane, right?
Hmm.
scan and track everything, every frequency, every whatever, and they pick up these objects that are just moving around, causing changes in the water, showing no signs of any kind of propulsion, like no heat signatures.
But
Uh,
inside our atmosphere, right? I mean,
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah. But they've seen them dropping from like 80,000 feet to 1 foot above the ocean in like the course of a second. Like just very odd and strange and unreal movement. Like,
yeah, by
um,
the laws of our physics or whatever.
yeah. And they, and Bob Lazar basically, um, do you know who Bob Lazar is?
No.
Okay. So, Bob Lazar is he's a physicist essentially, who worked at Las Alamos nuclear facility, on propulsion for ballistic missiles. Had, MIT. He's got a bit of a spotty like academic history, a lot of which has been kind of erased by the government.
Hmm.
But anyway, he worked. But seems like he's a real guy. Like he really is. Like it's obvious the government conspiracy against him is something of a construct because you can prove he was at all the places he said he was. It's just the records have been removed. Like, but it's absolutely true that he was there. Like, so he's not, and he's never. Anyway, you can do your own research on Bob Lazar, but anyway, so he worked at Los Alamos. He was recruited into um, research, uh, the research facility in Nevada. S4 is called, which is Area 51, essentially.
Know it. I know it.
Yeah, and he worked there for 9 months or something like that on what he describes as some form of gravity field generator that allowed for some form of propulsion. They could turn it on. They could make the crafts they had fly. He took his friends out. The way he ended up getting caught, or the way he ended up losing his job, essentially, was that he and a bunch of friends. He decided he got pissed off with his employer because um, uh, they were bugging the house or something, and his wife thought he was having an affair or something. There was something going on, so he decided, fuck it. So he took his friends out into the desert to show him the weird lights flying about over the facility on a Wednesday evening every night when they test the machines, and they were like taking pictures and shit of what was going on, and they got caught that way. But he saw the craft that they were working on. You know, it's a really like he's a really credible guy. There's a couple of podcasts. I think I put them in texts to you, which I'm assuming you haven't looked at, but
No, I haven't seen.
there's two. There's anyway, like I say, do your own research. But
Fuck.
essentially, like aliens are real.
Does it? So we have craft, but presumably don't have. Does he have aliens? You know, were they piloting them?
So
Oh man.
it seems that there were bodies, and the craft could be piloted, like they could be flown.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, he thinks he glimpsed maybe through a doorway something that looked like an alien body, but he it's the one part of his story was like I can't tell you anything of surety about that. I can tell you what I worked on, and I can tell you what I saw. I may have glimpsed something through a doorway, but I'm not even sure myself. I wasn't even sure myself at the time, and I certainly couldn't confirm anything at all. But I thought I
Wow.
saw some kind of alien body.
Wow. What a story that'd be.
Like
No,
that's nuts.
that's
Hey,
uh, that's big news.
it's big news, man. I don't know what to do about it. Like, there's not much I can do about it, so I'm going on with my life. But aliens are real. I feel like I should put it at the end of um, every text I send. I should just put like, oh, and aliens are real. Like
Yeah.
every communication I have with anyone randomly. So yeah,
Christ. I mean, there's just huge implications for that, aren't there? I mean, there's the reasons that the government would keep it secret in the first place are, are fairly obvious. I mean,
fairly obvious.
The big one being,
What do you mean?
well, I mean, first of all, there's the technological stuff, isn't there? That certainly the US would want to keep the technology for themselves because it could be weaponized or whatever, and
I think
China get hold of
yeah,
it.
you're right to put
There's
that
that
on
one,
the
but
list.
the other one is religion, isn't there? I mean, where does the Catholic Church stop or start getting involved in this kind of stuff?
You kidding me?
I
They
mean,
will have no problem whatsoever in incorporating this into their myth, just like they incorporate every bit of science into their myth.
yeah, I mean,
Now, that whether or not people like the church itself will have no problem with, they'll have no problem with this.
well, yeah,
I mean, I really believe that. Like, they'll just straight away, it's just another lie. So it's an easy thing to do. They'll just be like, well, just because there's aliens, that doesn't mean God didn't create aliens. Are you kidding?
sure, yeah. But
Why is
they
that
have
any
to.
more ludicrous than anything else that is said?
It may be, yeah. Well, did he give them? Did he give them another son that he had? You know?
It's all exactly God's plan. Like we don't know what Jesus's story is on Alpha Centauri,
Yeah,
but
or
he
maybe
had
he
a
was.
story there because God is everywhere, my friend.
Well, yeah, he didn't tell us though, did he?
Why would he?
I
It's not
suppose,
God's
yeah.
job to tell us. It's
It's a
for
need
us
to
to
know
find
basis.
out.
Yeah,
That route of logic is very easy for them to follow. That'll be fine. Um, but I think like the followers. I think there's an implication here for the followers of religions. Like the religions themselves will adapt and adjust just like they have done to every scientific change. I think, but whether or not that leads to a mass exodus of people believing in them because it's even more obvious how big the fallacy is, that's a different sort of thing.
mm,
But the like established religions themselves will very easily incorporate this into their myth with no problem. I think that at the top, the technology thing, like that's the main thing. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, obviously yeah, the way it can be used. If you're talking about things that can move that quickly, I mean,
I mean, this is so that was actually there's another. These are all Joe Rogan podcasts, by the way, but there's another one. But he has like a 2 hour discussion with Commander David Faber, who was the wing commander of the flight of F-18s that spotted one of these things off the USS Nimitz. And he saw the aircraft himself. He was the one. He actually tried to track. He was the one whose camera pod had actually tracked the object as it moved. And he talks about how he flew. And it's again, it's another one of those stories where this is a guy who straight down the line military guy, never even talked about this. Like didn't even
mhm,
bring it up until the Pentagon put the videos up. Right? Like he never did anything to try and capitalize on anything. He was just a military guy. He reported what he saw. They took the pictures. He's got the footage. He can talk through how he tried to track it, what they tried to do to sort of like close down on the object and what it did in response. Like the fact that it was actively jamming their like communications and radar. Like talks about all of that. And um, his point was that was I think at the time of that podcast, which I think was last year, he said that was 15 years ago that happened.
mhm,
If a world government or a company was sat on that kind of technology, so the explanation as to whether or not that's something that someone has just very cleverly developed and not told anyone about, he said if someone at that point had the technology to the point of testing where they could do what I saw them do, then by now that person would be ruling the world because that
mhm.
technology is so out of our expertise, so weird and
Yeah,
strange. Like they tracked the object and he tried to sort of cut it down in a normal way that you would with any kind of terrestrial, don't know if that's the right term, but other flying object from Earth. Um,
mhm,
and sort of it sort of played the game a little bit and then it just disappeared. And according to him, the radio operator he called to the radio operator. The radar operator? Can you see it? It's just disappeared from my camera. And the radar operator on the USS Nimitz says, "Nope, can't see it here. Hold on. I can see it at your last check post." This is like a second later.
Hmm.
And his last check post was 60 miles away. And the thing had gone 60 miles in a second. Like, I mean, it suddenly appeared on the radar there and then just disappeared. So somehow it knew where he'd come from and went directly back to that last checkpoint.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's sitting there in this really dry kind of discussion. And he's just laying it all out. Like, this is just what I saw. And he's since now testified to the Senate as well.
Christ. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it would challenge the laws of physics as we know them as well, won't it? Because most of these scientific law is down to hypothesis that is just tested and tested until, and it can't be disproved. And until something like this comes along and.
Yeah, well, Bob Lazar did say like that. The physics, one of the things that he was surprised, well, not surprised about, best to listen to him, but he was saying the gravity drives that he worked on don't break our laws of physics. They adhere to them in many regards because it's gravity acting in the way we would expect gravity to act if you could create a gravity field of your own. Right, so if you could create the gravity that sits around the Earth, it's created by the inertia, whatever. I don't know how fucking gravity works, but they do. So, however, that's the gravity fields themselves worked in that way. It's just how do you sustain a gravity field of your own? So it's not breaking our laws of physics. It's an expertise that we don't yet have. So it kind of proves science in a way, a kind of weird way.
And materials, I suppose, as well, isn't it? Because what they made of them.
And this is another thing that's happened recently. He talked about an element called element 115 or something like that. That he said is the thing that powers those gravity field generators. And he talked about it, and then 20 years later, they've actually made it in a lab, and they've now given it a space on the periodic table, element 113.
Right.
And so that's all, again, that's just dry science working in the background.
Wow.
Confirming his fucking story.
God. But yeah, I mean, that's the thought of a craft being here that's obviously traveled distances that we can't travel, right? Because we've explored the known solar system to the visible solar system to a certain extent. The last big thing was that there used to be water on Mars, right? That was proven a couple of years ago. So the fact that it had then all the elements of life that that's the art. When scientists are asked, do you think there's life on other planets? They say, well, it seems likely because most of the planets in our solar system that we know of have all the same elements that we had that led to life being created. So it stands to reason that it must have happened somewhere else. But if they've brought craft here, then that means that there's civilizations, right, somewhere else.
9 of them.
Right. Okay.
We've got 9 of them. Yeah. No. Of course. Absolutely. Or the other question is it us from the future?
Yeah.
Because if you can, and again, this isn't. You'll have to do your own research. I don't know. But apparently, if you can fuck around with gravity to a certain extent, then you can bend light and therefore time.
Yeah, that's the Stephen Hawking thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's time slows down as you approach the speed of light or whatever.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Is it us from the future? Anyway, look, I made notes to things to talk about. Actually, aliens was the third thing on there, not even the top.
Okay, which should have been the top. You haven't got two things more more important than that. Oh yeah, you sent me a picture. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it only had three things on there. The last one was aliens.
Wow, fucking hell, man, that's big stuff.
It's big stuff. It's big stuff, James. It does change perspectives, eh?
Mm,
A little bit. Makes it even more ridiculous that we're fighting wars anywhere.
yeah.
Like, there's obviously better shit out there. Let's just get at that. Like, we
Ah,
need to give Elon Musk needs to have those 9 craft.
yeah.
That's who should have it. He'll
Well,
work this shit out.
yeah. I'm not sure he's on the side of the angels, Kev.
Elon Musk?
Yeah.
No, he's not. He's on. He's just. But you wouldn't really. I mean, does that matter? He's good for the planet.
Well,
It's
yeah.
good to have Elon Musk's around. Like
Yeah,
he does shit.
he does. Yeah, he's quite a smart boy by all accounts. Apart from the windows on his new tank thing, that was pretty stupid.
But Tesla is at the end of the day probably the best thing that has ever happened to the car industry forever.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, so there's all that kind of stuff. Like, we need some assholes that have access to lots of tools, so they can be kept busy and they'll produce shit.
mm,
You know, I think. But
yeah. I was reading some pretty anti Joe Rogan stuff last night. There's quite a lot of people that think he's panders to the alt right quite a bit. Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, all these kind of alt
yeah.
right figures. They feature so heavily on his shows, and he
But they don't really. I mean,
well, Ben Shapiro's been on a lot.
he's been on
Yeah.
4 times. Joe Rogan has done over 1,500 podcasts.
Well, I think it's a lot more than four Ben Shapiro's been on.
No, I don't think so. I've watched all of
Okay.
them, pretty much. I watch
Okay.
Joe Rogan pretty constantly, frankly.
Mm.
Like, it may be more than four, but the fact remains that it's like, it's a very small, and he's had, I mean, you could, if he's had Ben Shapiro on 4 times, he's had Brett Weinstein and
Mm.
Eric Weinstein on just as many times. He's had people from the left, the right, from every bent of life, frankly.
Yeah, yeah, he covers. I mean, he covers all sorts, doesn't he? All subjects,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
He just
he's
has
had.
discussions, man.
Well,
Pretty
yeah,
transparent. Like,
but
it's
he,
people on there doing the talking. It's a good platform.
yeah, it is. It's helped Ben Shapiro out a lot because he's getting huge coverage from it, and the accusations against him are that he doesn't shut him down quick enough and gives him too much credence to, roll out his agenda.
Yeah.
But it's a chat thing, isn't it? I mean, he does challenge him. He was on recently, Ben Shapiro, and he started challenging him over this whole ghettoization and how
Yeah, yeah.
opportunities for kids. And Ben Shapiro starts with his, it's down to personal responsibility. That's what it is, personal agency. Young black
Yep.
kids need to learn to not pick up guns and forget the shackles of the past, kind of thing. And he was saying, yeah, okay, yeah, but
So
slavery.
I think, to be frank, I think Ben Shapiro's argument was a little more nuanced than just that. I didn't disagree wholeheartedly with pretty much everything he was saying, but I think what he was actually saying was that until you find a way of starting the process of people not picking up guns, you can't change anything. Like, I think it's a reductionist argument, but I don't think he was just saying that it was the responsibility was entirely on the black youth themselves to stop doing it. He was kind of saying you need to find a way to make that stop happening. He just never offers any kind of fucking solution. Like, this is why I wholeheartedly disagree with it. Like, okay, that's fine to say, and actually, Ben, if you looked into that, that's great. Like, you need to pull that out a little bit more and find out what's going on. What are those things? You can't just leave it at the door that you need to find a mechanism to stop people picking up guns. You have to then go on and fucking describe what the mechanism is. And I didn't think Joe Rogan actually got into it deep enough with him, because I think if he had pulled him out on that point, it would have weakened him a little bit more on that
Mm.
argument. But he was trying to say there needs to be a mechanism to do it, and then just never offering a solution. That's kind of what he does all the fucking time.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
I actually have no fucking problem with sitting and listening to someone talk about that stuff. Why would I? Like, he can say what he says, like, and you can argue and disagree with him, and that's I think what the benefit of that platform is. That equally, Joe Rogan has had Tulsi Gabbard on his podcast. He's had Bernie fucking Sanders on his podcast.
Mm. Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? He's just
Mm.
giving the platform out there, and actually, it's, you know, to have someone in that environment being challenged and being talked to like that. Ben Shapiro's a
He,
clever fucking guy. He does have
he,
some
he
good
is.
ideas.
Yeah, but not sure he gets challenged a lot on most platforms that he goes on.
But he's
He gets
so
shot down
good at
quicker.
shutting it down.
He is. He's very fast. Very
Apart from
fast.
did you see the interview with Andrew Neil?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, accused him of being a left winger, didn't he? And then stormed off. But yeah, that was beautiful.
I mean, I
He
probably
did come out and apologise, I think, didn't
he had to.
he? Yeah.
I don't agree with much of what Andrew Neil thinks either, but he was just brilliant. I loved him for that interview because it was just awesome. It was like, if you knew anything about me, you would be seriously making it anyway. But yeah.
Yeah.
I've just been watching a documentary on Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Oh, Unabomber. Yeah.
So, what do you think? Complete fraud or serial so a serial killer,
Well, yeah.
genuinely someone who was doing it for a cause?
Well, I mean, I think he believes he was doing it for a cause. I mean, he was again an incredibly smart guy, right? I mean, not sort of off the charts smart. He was in the top 2% of mathematicians or whatever. But his whole thing was, if I'm right in saying, was that he was talking about the fear of technology, right? It was technology that was destroying the world, and that was
his thesis is
point
basically the idea that actually the continuous advance of technology doesn't have any advantages for the human race, and because it's driving. And I only know this shit because I was literally just watching them describing his manifesto. I think I'm on episode 3 of the Netflix one, so they're just getting into his manifesto.
It's just the interview with him, right, where they've got the tape of the recording. I've seen some. I watched a few episodes of that, and then there's a dramatization, isn't there? A film
Yes, what is
recently as well.
Was that
I can't remember who's in it, but
the guy who played Mysterio?
Possibly. But yeah, I mean, he just basically it was his sister-in-law, wasn't it, that gave him up or recognised the sort of language he was using in his letters. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, as a guy, he's lost the plot, hasn't he? Because what he was doing is
madness.
Madness. Totally horrific.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you could even begin to argue that the people that he targeted were bad or even at the forefront of the technologies he was talking about. I mean, he maimed and killed innocent people.
You're right.
But that there's something in that, I think, that appeals to me. The stepping off grid. I'm fascinated by people that are off grid completely, that delete their digital selves and move to a log cabin in wherever it was. It was, US, wasn't it?
Montana.
Remote Montana.
Yeah.
I mean, literally a wooden, no bigger than the room I'm in now,
Absolutely.
right? With nothing. And he lived that way. But having said that, he still then reached out to local people. There were little connections. He was very rude and very blah, blah, blah. But there were certain people in the town he'd cycled to that he began to build human relationships with again, to a certain extent. And I think that, that's the then that's in everybody, isn't it? That no matter how far you run from technology or Facebook or whatever, there's
Yeah,
still that basic human need to
yeah,
communicate. And
yeah.
I mean, he's a whack job essentially, but he is
Well,
off
it
the
was,
charts smart.
yeah, off the charts smart. But did you the very first episode they talk about like, because there's a lot of interviews with his brother throughout it,
Hmm.
and his wife,
Yeah.
said the sister-in-law. But and right at the very start, in the first episode, his brother talks about an incident that his mother had told him about, where Ted was taken to a hospital because he was sick. He was a very smiley child and had been very bouncy before they went. And they took him there, and he had to stay at the hospital for a week. And the parents weren't allowed to stay. They could visit for 2 hours once a week. And I think I can't remember how old he was, but he was still a baby essentially. And then he came back from that hospital changed. And I was thinking about it because they talk about it very briefly. There's a theory, which is what Ruth talks about all the time, about this attachment disorder. Like there's a certain period of your life where if you make secure attachments and they're reciprocated, then
Hmm.
from that point in your life onwards, you know how to have a relationship.
Hmm.
Like whether it's with your mother or with your father, most usually the mother, or if it's just with a carer or someone who looks after you, it doesn't really matter who the person is. But you have to be able to form that first bond to then form subsequent ones. It creates the
Hmm.
neural pathways that allow for that. And if you feel in that period of time, if you feel like you're abandoned, then that can result in that neural pathway never being built. So
Hmm.
that although you can therefore be intelligent and you can work in normal society, it's right. It's the beginnings of all of the pathies.
Hmm. Yeah.
Probably that's a far too wide a bubble.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
so he talks about that, and I wonder, like a week seems a very short amount of time, but like he's off the charts smart, right? So as a
Hmm.
baby, does that just means he got fucked quicker? Like, do you know?
Yeah, I think there's lots of cases, certainly in fiction as well, of people that having great intelligence. Because of that intelligence, it means that they cannot form relationships with other
Yep.
human people because they're so different to them. It is like an alien, coming to Earth, that
Yes.
cannot, because they don't. A reason that we're friends is because we have so much in common. And if you're so much smarter than everyone around you, you don't have that much in common. I mean, even like Sherlock Holmes, for instance. I mean, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
as a fictional character, but
Yeah.
he's able to do what he does to a certain extent because he's disjointed and away
Yep.
from emotion. But that's his kind of Achilles heel, isn't it? Is that he doesn't understand. That's the joke in the books, isn't it? Is that he can look at a person and work out that 3 weeks ago they had a cigar or whatever. Just
Yep.
but if they're attracted to him and come on to him overtly or whatever, he'll be the only one in the room that doesn't realize that because he doesn't
Right.
pick up on those human signals, like an autism kind of thing, I suppose.
Yeah. Well,
You know.
that's the other, you know, that's the other thing that's oft questioned, isn't it? That scale of autism.
Mm.
Like, how much on the spectrum are you? Like,
Mm.
it's often something that's said about geniuses. Well, they're somewhere on a spectrum.
Mm.
Like, yeah, which is, again, I don't know anything about that really, but
It comes up in Good Will Hunting, if you've seen that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Ted Kaczynski is used as an example in that, between the two, Robin Williams and the other professor, and they're talking about Matt Damon's character and how super intelligent he is, and one of them is saying that we have to give him the opportunity to develop his mind, right? So he has to be sent to the best universities and given and challenged on maths to the point where he can help humankind. And Robin Williams had said, "Have you ever heard of Ted Kaczynski?" And the other guy says, "No, never heard of him." He's like, "Well, he was an absolutely brilliant, he was at MIT and he was, top of his class and blah, blah,
yeah,
blah." showed incredible talent, but never formed relationships with people. And then
Right.
they shout to the barman who's there in the bar, who's Ted Kaczynski? And he says, yeah, it's the Unabomber, you know. So
Right.
he's
Yeah.
making the
Yeah. Okay.
point that you can't put these people in a bubble and
Yeah.
expect them to become normal human beings. They have to be given free reign to develop, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
But is
it's
that
just
that's exactly what I mean about my point earlier about sort of Elon Musk is that like he might be a madman. Like
mm,
who knows? He might be even a but he's definitely not a joke.
no,
He's
absolutely.
he's an absolutely 100% benefit to the planet.
Hmm.
And I don't think he's that bad a character or that bad an actor at all. Like I think he's off the charts intelligent and super fucking productive.
Mm.
You know, it's a fucking good thing. Like I don't think he'll harm anyone. Do you know what I mean? He'll only benefit us.
Yeah, he strikes me as the kind of guy that might make decisions that are for the good of the human race, but that cost human lives in the way that a computer would. In the films where artificial intelligence takes over, and the computers look at humankind and decide that the best way is to kill half of humanity. Back to the Thanos thing again,
Yeah, yeah.
because that actually does make scientific sense
Well,
if
that's
you
one of
look
the
at.
that's the fear of AI, isn't it? The paperclip argument. Like if we create an AI that is tasked with making paperclips, it'll turn everything in the world into paperclips because it's artificially intelligent. So before you know it, it'll have worked out a way to turn you into a paperclip.
Right, yeah, and I might be more useful that way.
Yeah, well,
Who
no,
knows?
it doesn't matter whether you're useful. It has one task.
Hmm.
It's got one task, but it can move and think a lot faster than you ever can. So you're like it starts making buildings into like what did I just say? Paperclips. Starts
Paperclips,
making
yeah.
cars, buildings, all kinds of things into paperclips, and you're like, no, no, stop! Like I just wanted you to make some paperclips, and it's like,
Hmm.
why are you stopping me from? I need to make you into a paperclip.
Hmm.
Just stopping me from making paper. I just have to make paperclips.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the
But
fear of
that's
like artificial general intelligence that's with one task. It's like the Gollum idea, isn't it?
yeah. It's that idea of a world crisis is played out in movies and books all the time, isn't there? Where there's an alien invasion or whatever, and the whole planet's going to die, but there's one little girl that needs to be sacrificed in some way. That she needs to be thrown to the machine, and the president of the United States or whoever it is in charge is there, and they hesitate because they're like, I cannot justify the death of innocents, blah blah blah. But when you look at it on paper from a cold scientific point of view, of course it makes sense to sacrifice those people.
Yeah.
But that's not who we are. That's not
No.
what human beings do. We don't look at the big picture all the time and make those kind of decisions. But Elon Musk strikes me as the kind of guy that would just make those decisions kind of maybe quite coldly because he's so smart.
Yeah. And you have to ask the question as to whether or not then if he's that smart, is he right?
Mm,
That's one thing you have to say. But it's true. I've heard other people talk also about this idea of like, you know, the extinction of animals in our environment.
hmm
Like ultimately, as a human race, the only thing we can really aspire to is becoming at uh, becoming at one with the biosphere in which we live.
mm.
Right? Like the only goal really is make sure that equilibrium ru- runs out. Like is the rule, right? That we get to a state where we can exist as a race and a population of the planet and not overwhelm it in terms of resource or pollution or anything really. We need to
Mm.
become at one with the biosphere. Otherwise, we're fucked. We're beyond the threat of nuclear war, we're fucked
Yeah,
otherwise, right?
yeah.
So, like other than but even if we have to, we could kill ourselves with our own agency through nuclear war,
Hmm.
or we could kill ourselves through just not paying enough attention to the biosphere and
But
fucking it up to the
that's
point where we can't live, right?
that's a fairly new idea, though, isn't it? I mean, that's 20, 30 years old.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thinking, and I think is more of a Western philosophy than, you know,
Well,
certainly not an
but it's
ideal
fact
held by
based.
everyone.
But it's fact based. Like it's true. If we continue to pollute if we
Mm,
continue to pollute in certain ways, or if we continue to do that, and you know, I'm
mm,
not getting in. I'm not talking about sort of. I'm not. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that in 15 years we're fucked. Like I'm not. I'm not
mm,
being. What I want to say. I'm not trying to be spectacular or whatever. Like
mm,
what I'm saying is like that's a fact based thing. Like we have to as a race. It looks like our population is going to top out like
mm,
somewhere. Like it doesn't look like we'll keep growing. Like contraception, all of that kind of thing. If we continue as a society as we are across the globe, our population will cap somewhere. So it's just a matter of finding a space where we're not sucking up resource too much, like, and we're, you know, we've got CO2 scrubbers in the air or whatever. Like, we'll find a space, but we need to find that
mm.
biosphere alignment to exist as a race, right?
Yeah,
So that's a true thing, right?
I'm not sure it's going to happen because I
No,
think,
I'm
you
not
know,
sure
it's
either. No, I'm not sure either. But if that's the case, do we really care if polar bears are there?
right. Well, yeah.
Like, do we?
Hmm.
Like, you know, what's more important? Is it saving the panda, or is it working out how to live underwater, or like whatever? Like,
Hmm.
that's really the task. Either that or we go off world, but like, we need to be thinking in those kind of timescales
Mm.
rather than being worried about the panda, which is essentially an evolutionary dead end. Like the reason it does fuck all is because it has to do nothing but eat all day. Like it's evolved
Well,
to the point where it can only eat bamboo.
yeah, sure, yeah. So does a blue whale. I mean, that has to, you know,
Yeah,
just.
there's no. The reason the blue whale is so successful is there's a fuckload of what it wants, and the
Mm,
thing that it wants has got a lot of nutrients. That's
hmm.
why it's so fucking big and so successful. The panda's a fat lazabout that just sits around and eats bamboo, which has no nutrients at all. So therefore, it eats all day. It doesn't generate enough energy to do anything. So it just becomes a self. It's basically an eating and shitting machine. That's all it does.
Yeah,
It sits about and eats and shits.
yeah.
It's there to simply. It's a fertilizer.
But it's a dangerous path to go down, isn't it? When you start listing animals and rating them in order of importance.
We should
Uh,
celebrate every animal life, James.
well,
We should
I,
celebrate. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying there's bigger tasks at hand, and the survival of the pandas is not one that we should really be too invested in as a human society.
yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think most people are on board with that, you know, humans before animals argument, but not everybody. There's
Not
a lot of
everyone.
people that aren't.
No, that's yeah, not everyone.
Um, you know, the bees thing, obviously, bees are
Yeah,
important, but
bees.
only because they're important to us. You know, they're not
True.
important otherwise. They're less important than pandas, really, because they're, you know, they're not as smart and they can sting you. Pandas can't sting. You ever had anyone attacked by a panda, mate of yours?
So what you're saying
Nobody.
basically is we shouldn't care about bees, but we need to. But if you're looking at it from a practical perspective, we do need to retain the bee population until we can work out mechanical bees. And once we've worked out mechanical bees, we don't need bees anymore either.
Well, once you've got mechanical bees, there'll be spy bots, won't they? And Elon Musk will be all over that. There'll be
Well,
transmitters, tiny
he's
cameras.
trying to develop neural link technology at the moment. So he's talking that within 3 or 4 years he'll be able to transplant a uh, like a group of sensors into the brain via a plate that's laid inside the skull. So he'll trepan you, put a little plate in there with lots of sensors on it, which will go into the neurons of your brain and will act essentially like a way of. He's talking about it being able to kind of sort out any nerve damage in the body because they'll be
Mm,
able to work out what parts of the um, they need to stimulate for growth to repair
mm.
nerves, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm very wary of that kind of talk, though. I just, you know, it's the Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park argument, isn't it? You know, you're so preoccupied about whether or not you could, you never stop to think whether you should. You know,
Whether you decide to dive headlong into the idea that we're evolving, and this is an evolutionary process that we're going through. Our lives are so finite, like in terms of large scale picture. But do we have any other purpose than to do this, or is there something more, right? Which is essentially getting, not necessarily religious, but then into the more existential side of, like, I don't know.
well, I know where Ted Kaczynski would stand on that one. I don't think he and Elon Musk would get on very well. That would be fucking interesting to put them on a podcast with Joe Rogan, wouldn't it? A pair of them.
Would. Oh, that would.
That would take some arranging.
Is he dead yet?
Who? Ted Kaczynski? No, I don't think so. Alive, oh. So that could happen. I mean, he'd have to do it from jail, but he could be on a
Zoom call.
On a Zoom call with Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. Can you imagine?
No, I can't, but I would watch it.
I would watch that. Yeah,
I would watch that. Do you want to talk about music at all?
yeah. Yes, we should. I haven't really done anything since our last
No, that's
call.
cool.
I did watch your podcast with your friend. Will. That was very interesting.
Yeah, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, he's very eloquent, isn't he? I like the way he talked about his process and the way he'd attacked, songwriting, which is what we've talked about a lot. You know, the process of how do you write a song, how do you write an album? Because he's done that, right? He's just finished his album. But I mean, the big thing that struck me was where he talked about at the beginning, where he would, I think similarly to you and I, he would write something on a guitar or piano or whatever, and then scramble to record it and get it down. But he was talking about recording a song, like laying down the finished version up until the end of a verse and not having a chorus written.
Yeah.
And that's like scared me to hear him say that. I was like, how could you do that? How could you commit yourself to the process and not have the finished product? It's like, you know, starting a painting, but not knowing what's going to be on that side of the canvas, kind of thing. Yeah. And obviously it's totally valid. Everyone has their own methodology of how they're going to go about it. But just for me personally, I was like, and I thought, well, that's a big difference in process, because I couldn't do that. I
think that might have something to do with I thought personally, just in terms of where he comes from musically, and I'm talking about time periods, like when like he's maybe 15 years younger,
right?
So different musical landscape from us, where we're just sort of like watching live performance and stuff, and much more in the kind of realm of it's a song. We're still all albums, and he says it in there. He's all song. Like he made that album, and now he regrets spending time making the album. Actually, now he's just going to do singles. Like he says it in there, and so I just think it's a different perspective. Like he's just, and also I think it's a different. So I also think he's come at it. So he's not like he said, he came straight out of school, went straight to a sixth form because they had a music production place. Like his interest is in the production straight away. He can play all the instruments. Like he's one of those guys. Like he could just he's just got straight into everything. And he's like, right, well, I can produce the whole thing now. I've got the skills to do the desk. I've got the skills to do the door. I can work in this. Like he's still using Cubase. It's what he used in college. Like so skilled at that. Like so he was just straight into the production thing of it from the get-go. Like not that idea of we'll gig for like 6 months, create a song.
Yeah, because that's the and I've been. Yeah, I think in my heart of hearts, I do believe that is the way it should be done, is that you should write a song and learn to play it And if you're in a band or a duo or whatever, that you play it together and you get your parts fixed. But at that point, you go out and you play it live and you tour it and you play it, you know, I mean, not necessarily tour because we're not
Yeah.
all in touring bands, but I mean, you know, that you go out and you take it to gigs, which we have done, right, with songs and seen a physical human reaction to it from
Yep.
people we don't know. And based on that, you change the song. And even the act, I think, of standing and playing it live
Yep.
is you fall into certain grooves and whatever, and that song evolves. And bands used to do that kind of thing, right? In the 70s,
Fuck yeah.
certainly, you know, is that they would tour. You'd go and see a band live and they'd play a load of songs that you don't recognize. And those songs, in some form or whatever, would end up on the next album
Yep.
based on your response to them,
Yeah.
you know, as an audience member. And I do think that is the best way for a song to evolve, to get to its point where the artists who are making it are happy with it.
Yeah. But then, I mean, if you talk about, I mean, you could say that, but then what about Sergeant Pepper's? What about Queen Night at the Opera?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the Beatles didn't really.
They didn't do any of
They
that
didn't.
live.
They,
Any of
they
it.
played live, but they didn't tour. You know, they. I
No,
don't.
by the time they were at Sergeant Pepper's, they weren't playing live at all. Those songs
Yeah,
were
yeah,
all written in the studio.
yeah. Absolutely. And the White Album is one of the best albums ever. And they're all individually written songs, right? And they just turned up, and he said, "Right, I want you to play this and that
Yep.
on it," and it's wonderful. So there's no, you know, there's no rules here. And I've been guilty of it recently with just song ideas that I come up with. I just whack them down, and suddenly I'm recording it
Yeah,
without
I do think.
ever having played it out loud to myself, which is
Yeah,
weird. I've never done that before.
really.
No, no, no.
Do you
Most of the
imagine? So
stuff.
you're imagining the chords as well as the like you're coming up with the song and you know how to play it before you're sitting down.
Yeah, I think it comes from having the synth and then having the digital recording thing, because it's a different way of writing, because you're using the computer to help you write the song, and that's the bit I've never done before. I've long
Yep.
had
Okay.
this
Yep.
ethos, which is not mine, that's someone else's, that it's not a proper song if you can't sit and play it on an acoustic guitar.
Right.
And I like that idea because it pulls you away from the digital nonsense, you know, and will, you know, we'll very quickly descend into the Radiohead argument, which is a well-trodden path, which I really don't want to do.
Okay.
But
I won't go there then.
but
Yeah, because I was just about to interrupt you.
but yeah, you know, I mean, it's an argument about dance music, you know, in the 90s, you know, is that
Yep.
it's an argument I would have with Job and Andy Lovejoy back in the day, is that
Yep.
the music they listened to, that happy hardcore bullshit, is it's not a proper song because you can't sit down and play it on an acoustic guitar and translate it into a way that it would be enjoyable to listen to. So therefore, it's irrelevant, doesn't count, because it's built on a keyboard, it's a computer playing it. But now you can fall into the pattern where you can create real drums to a certain extent and play on a keyboard with a synth, and you can build up a song which is sounds like a band and is a band to a certain extent and has all the same parts and all the rest of it. But you can build it yourself, even as a musician, as a singer songwriter. You can build something on a computer and finish it off, and it's beautiful, and you're very happy with it. But you can do that without ever having sat by yourself and played that song through on its own. And that's a little bit of a departure for me from
But I
what
think
I
the
think are
thing,
my core values.
and I don't think they're quite chiming together. Like on one hand, you're saying that a song isn't a song unless it's played in front of a group of people with some emotion coming from it, and it's the
Mm.
emotion of the people who are watching the song that's the important thing about a song's creation.
But their reaction, for the artist to be able to
Yeah,
see how people
and
react.
as an artist, what you're
Mm.
doing is you're provoking emotion. That's right,
Mm.
right. And the reason you get a reaction from them is because they're emotionally tagged, like they've been
Mhm.
hit up by the shit you're doing.
Yeah,
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 and at the same time, you're also saying that that's negated by something that's created like without that reaction. But then if you send something to someone that you've created in a studio and it causes an emotion in them, listening by themselves in a room where they get great enjoyment out of it. Is that any different? Like, you've still created something beautiful as an artist.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Affected
yeah,
them.
sure. It's
So
just
the
not quite
argument
as
about,
organic.
I get with you. The happy hardcore thing. I mean, I always had this argument with like Colin,
Hmm.
like Noel,
Yeah.
like he would just sit and listen to happy hardcore like all hours of the day, and I was like, this is like, what about Led Zeppelin?
Mm.
About
He would
six
listen to
months
the
ago,
Stone
you
Roses,
really,
wouldn't he? He
he
was a
would,
Roses fan.
he
Yeah,
would, but
yeah.
but he would also listen to, like 6 months ago, you were just listening to Led Zeppelin. Now you just listen to this, like, I had the same fucking discussions,
Yeah.
but uh, but I think there is I think there's something to be said that if you create if the art that you create, regardless of what the format you use to create it, then goes on and self-replicates through people's emotions throughout whatever
Mm.
size of audience you have, you've done kind of your job,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
way
yeah,
you
no,
came up
sure,
with it.
sure. It's a perhaps it's a um
I mean, and that's not I'm not trying to downplay what you're saying. I think what you're saying is absolutely. I just think there's a slight
mm,
hole in um, somewhere in that, just in the sense that it can be done. I think it requires the same emotion you're talking about though to do it.
mhm.
Like that, it has to have that connection. It's got to have that. Um, well, it's got to have what happened with Sergeant Pepper's. It's got to have that.
Mhm.
Be creative on every level because
Yeah.
you're right. Like, and you need to be super fucking good
Mhm.
to just get away without any kind of feedback loop. Like,
Mhm.
like I don't think I can just create something in here without going through the process that you are talking about. Like, I
Mhm.
the same as you. I can't live in this echo chamber and just create shit that just not that level of artist. But I think there
Mhm.
are those levels of artist. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, sure. And the Beatles obviously are,
Yeah.
the best example of that because the
Yeah.
melodies are, they're unarguable, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah.
there's no, um, I don't think anyone in that room at the time would have said, "No, I don't really like that one." They're all right there, present and correct,
Yeah.
aren't they?
Yeah.
First time out.
Yeah.
But those songs did evolve. There are a lot of Beatles rough takes that have been released,
Sure.
in the last
That's true.
10, 20 years. So they did evolve through. They would always record them first to a
Yeah.
certain extent because they had that freedom of the studio, didn't they, to mess around and do different takes and things. And you hear early versions of Strawberry Fields or whatever, and they sound weird,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you think, Christ, before someone said, whoever it was, speed that bit up a bit, or change that melody
Yeah. Yeah.
slightly in that vocal to give you the version that you just
Well, it's that
that
thing with Strawberry
it suits.
Fields, isn't it? Where they laid John's
Mm.
choruses over um, Paul's verses, and they had to
Right,
splice the tape to change the speed on the choruses.
right,
They
okay.
just they took those two songs and just
Hmm.
welded them together,
Yeah.
basically. Because I think they'd written the same. Or can't remember. They'd written two separate songs, and yeah, I think that's it. They'd written two separate songs. They liked the verses and the choruses. There was enough tying them together lyrically that it didn't really matter.
Yep.
But they were in two different time signatures, or no, tempos, whatever it was. So they just spliced the tape together in such a way that it worked. That's nuts. Um, but I haven't done anything, if I'm honest, with, well, I did. I've laid down a telepart on Weezils.
Hmm.
And did you listen to the bass line? Yes. I think you said you
Yep.
you heard that. So I've
Yep.
re-recorded that. So I think I've got a finished version of that.
Okay, cool.
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I just top up my drink?
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
need to plug in my laptop. And back.
So I've just got in the drums, horns, your two original guitar parts. Oh, you're moving to beer. Interesting.
Yeah. Not, shit, there's a fly in my beer.
Already? He was
It was just crawled into the glass. He's having a bad day.
You're having a better one.
Yeah.
So I've just got in here the drum track. I haven't done anything to it. The horn track. I haven't done anything to it. Your guitar parts. I did try taking the offbeat one. I recorded a telly part with the. I actually didn't use the fuzz. I used just an overdrive pedal. So I tried that, and then I tried also putting that in, and then taking your offbeat track and fucking around with the amp that emulation you used.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Also, just swapping out to different amp emulations. I also tried playing around with your vocal a bit, like removing some of the effects that were on there from the sort of natural vocal plugin that just go on there as normal. See in Logic Band, like if you select one of those like natural vocal or something like that, it just adds compression and EQ and everything to it as part of that plugin. And actually, I did all of that and then just dialed it all the fuck back.
Okay.
Because I was really worried then, like I'd fucked up the original mix. It wasn't that I necessarily disliked what I'd done, but then I was like, it doesn't seem to have the same feeling anymore. The mix, like when I first heard it, it now sounded very different, and I wasn't pleased with it. So actually,
Okay.
I dialed all of that back, and as much as I can, and put it back to where it was. So your amps are still now the same,
And it's still got my two guitars are still in there at the moment.
both of your guitars are still in there at the moment. I've written the bass part to a point where I'm happy with it. I've tried instead doing acoustic guitar rather than electric.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I've recorded a version of like a picking part that I can do with it, but I don't think the acoustic has enough punch to get through the mix. I'm listening back, but you might have a different opinion. So what I'm playing to you now, sorry.
So the acoustic, you played that open in G, did you, without capo?
Yep.
In the natural tuning. Yeah. Okay.
It's the Alvarez straight into that new DI that I got.
Okay. With your two mic
No,
thing,
or I've just gone straight in and used this DI because I wanted to see what the sound was like.
From the pickup.
Yeah, just from the Piezo in my
Okay. Yep.
Cool. It's quite a nice sound. I don't know if it's right for this, but that's what I've tried so far. The two mic method with Ruth's Epiphone might be better because it would be a fuller sound, I think. But so this is just the drums, the horns, your guitar parts, and the bass that you're going to hear to start.
Okay.
Is that coming through?
Yep. The click. Yep.
Not sure about that bit. And I fucked that up. So that last bit, the dismount, the doom, 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 that's the last bit I need to conquer.
Okay. Yeah. Now that's lovely. That bass really works on the chorus, doesn't it? As it goes into that, that's lovely. That.
Yeah,
And
I like the way there's a little harmony bit, and then when it kicks in on the E, G, D bit, I like the way it hits there, which is.
Is there any looping, or is that's just played straight through? Is it? Yeah.
That bit.
Yeah. Dum Boredom. Yep.
So a little harmony bit, and then here. Like it needs more practice to get it sort of bang on the money, but I think that'll be a nice like hit moment. And then this opens up really nicely here,
Yeah.
as you said. Yeah, it's like, and those just your, like I say, your original guitar parts. I haven't done anything to them. Done nothing to the mastering either. So
Okay.
and that, yeah. The second verse is just the same as the first, essentially, or there might be some slight changes in the bass, and then at the end, this last bit. I'm assuming that's where that would then go.
Yes.
And then the vocal would kick in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's like
I can now pull the first. I can pull the first bass part out.
Mm-hmm.
And I can probably pull your first verse guitar parts out and just loop them into the third verse from there. So where are you with lyrics? Have you written lyrics for the third verse?
Yes, I have.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So because I like that mix right there. For me, is not bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice. It's got a lot of space in it, which is nice, isn't it? It's not cluttered. So I tempted to say it doesn't need
A huge amount.
a lot more in there. I mean, I think maybe re-recording the guitar parts as they are to give them a nicer tone would be nice. And I think it would be nice if you and I did one each, maybe, or you picked one and did your version.
So here's where my problem comes with that. And I do think I need to do this because, so here's my telly part. Essentially the bass line. And I actually recorded it alongside your offbeat part, so I'll put that back in. I think it adds nothing. In my opinion, the mix without that, and so the only reason I go to say that is I'm not really going to be able to play that how you've played it. I think the magic of what you've got there is what you've got there, and I'm not going to. Me playing it alongside you live is something else we can talk about. But in the context of this, I think we should keep. I don't think I should play any rhythm guitar on this. I think we should do your rhythm. Now, I don't disagree with you that there might be something you could do with the amp emulations to get them to sound different.
Yeah.
I personally quite like what they're doing at the moment. Like I said to you, I did fuck around with them, but I felt like I took some of the joy out of the mix when I did.
Okay. Yeah, like I say, the only difference is the two pickups on my telly. So that's one guitar is on one pickup, one is on the other.
Fine. They are two very different beasts. The neck and bridge pickups of a telly. Like, so it constitutes a really good.
Yeah.
It's a really good sort of like.
Can you just play it back with just my two guitar parts just on their own?
Yep. No bass.
No, nothing. Just to hear what the sort of tone is of them. and the timing. I'm not, because it was a little, like I say, a little bit rushed because I spent a lot of time on those horns.
Yeah. Do you want me to share the screen?
Nah, it's all right. Oh yeah, so there's definitely a much deeper tone on one, isn't there?
Yeah.
You hear they come together on the end.
Yes.
There, together.
Whatever you, however you feel about the way you play electric guitar, and I can't comment on that. You can fucking play guitar, James. These are fucking fun. Like, you've no need anyone else to play this. This can just, it's fine. They're awesome. And yeah, and the also the amp sound works. Like the reverb and whatnot on it.
Yeah.
And it, because you've chosen, because there's so much more bottom end in the I don't know, which one did you play on the top, on the neck pickup?
Can't remember which way around it was.
It sounds like the offbeat one is the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's enough of a difference there. And we can play, the other thing that, you know, it's true to say as well, there is stuff that you could do with that to kind of, you know, add some effect to it on a bus or whatever. To,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of room there.
So this be your solo, that section there.
So okay, let me play the telly part with my, I suppose, lead telly, whatever.
Okay, yeah.
With,
So where it drops into that E section. The idea is that the solo runs through that.
I'll play it through with the other parts, and then you can pick and choose what you want, because, or what you like, or whatever, and just tell me which bits you want to keep and which bits you don't, or which bits you'd like me to work on more, essentially. Like,
okay.
So if I put. That dismount thing.
So the solo should be these 4 bars and this bit as well.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, so exactly where you've come back with the bass. That's the third verse.
I think the bass goes on, because at the moment the bass is just in for 2 bars. It should be 4 bars.
Okay.
Just like the intro at the start of the song.
Yeah.
And then the vocal comes back in.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the electric part on the top. Mm-hmm. As I said to you in the last time we talked about this, the bits in the verses are, like I say, I'm trying to mirror the horns. Mm-hmm. The idea when I was doing that was kind of like, well, this is kind of something you could do live. Build this part up, like pedal type sound. The only parts I think are actually valid for the recording are that, to a certain extent, that dismount at the end of the last verse and then into the solo.
Yeah.
Because it mirrors the horns perfectly. And I think it's also, and I haven't worked out how to do it yet, it should also be kind of what the bass does on that handoff, to bring everything together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want it to have an impact as well. So I think that tone you've got is really lovely, and where it drops to that into E, which is a totally different musical part of the song, right? The rest of it's in G or whatever. That guitar suddenly breaking in as a solo instrument should definitely be a thing. You know, that should be volume wise right up there and drop right in. So it could be that your dismount bit and the other parts of it are a different sound or a different amp or whatever. Or but
okay.
Okay,
so like maybe a more, well, that actually, so maybe that fits. So like the acoustic. So I had been thinking earlier on, I'll play the straight up signal from the pedal by itself, actually. Sorry, the DI. I did my first product review, James.
Nice. What product did you review?
I've yet to publish the video, but I reviewed the acoustic attack by AGX. I don't know what that means. Tone Shaper preamp.
Nice. Have you reached out to the manufacturer for a free upgrade? Yeah,
Yeah, no.
got some kit.
But I have done a product review now, which is I can't remember if the video's up yet. I'm making so many.
Nice.
So this is the acoustic.
Oh, cool.
It's probably going to sound horrible. I've never listened to it just by itself. But that's just the piezo.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, like, if it was just me and you sat on stools.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Can you play that just with the two electric guitars, just so that I can hear what that sounds like? Because
Your
that's
two.
my two, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, I think, like you say, that I can see the two of us sat playing it acoustically,
Yeah.
and I on the other acoustic, I could literally just maybe play the offbeats
Yeah.
on acoustic, and you play that part over the top, and that would sound lovely.
And that's what I mean about like me recording the rhythm guitar parts. You can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I could no way do that. I could play that you
Mm-hmm.
just heard me play, but the idea of sitting there and playing the offbeat and singing at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't maintain that. Because my my right hand would just go.
Okay. All right. So I think it's the Can you play it all the way through with take out the take the acoustic out,
Yep.
because I think I'm not sure that's going to fit
No.
on this recording of it.
Yeah, I agree.
But keep that part.
Okay.
If you pull that track off, and I tell you what I'd like is if you could pull that acoustic track off,
Yeah.
just with the drums maybe, and give me that,
Yeah.
because then I could practice playing along to that, and that's our live version. You know, that's our.
Okay. Do you want the bass now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, probably bass to play along to.
Yeah, like if we could get Jamie to play like a
Harp?
no. But what are they called?
Oh, a what?
Upright bass, or his
Oh, an
cello.
upright.
He could just
Yeah,
play
yeah.
his cello.
Yeah,
We could get Jamie to do that on stage at the Hobbit.
yeah. See, that would work. I tell you what would work is Jamie doing the if he had a chorus effect or a layered effect on the cello, doing the stabs, junk, 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 but with a cello thing, that would work nicely.
Yeah.
But that would be really nice. Two acoustics with a cello. But again, it's a different song then, right? It's a different, totally different. Well, it's a different version of it, but a very different experience.
So
But I'd love to record that
oh God, this
as
is
well.
it really has legs. Like there's a lot you can do with this. It's a fucking fun song.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice upbeat thing, isn't it? The by the way, I kind of screwed up on the recording. You know where it goes to the E section where the solo is, which is E, G, and A. So it goes E, G, G, A, A.
Yep.
In my head, when I first thought about it, it was going E, E, G, A, E, E, G, A. So it's really supposed to be jingle dingle dingle diddle 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 in that over the solo section rather than diddle diddle
I'm kind
diddle.
of playing that with the. I'm kind of playing that on the telly part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. So I think it won't affect anything that you're playing, but I think it might be a bit more fun to play it that fast changes. But I don't know. I mean, I can have a.
Well, I suppose what I'm saying is like
Maybe
I
that's doing it
understand
already.
exactly what you mean. Like I've
Mm.
picked out that what you're talking about in each of those, like on the offbeats with the B7.
Hmm.
There's that beat
Yeah,
underlying everything you're doing throughout it. I don't think you've missed
yeah,
it. It's in there, and I've picked up on it with the acoustic and
yeah.
stuff. So I
Okay.
don't. I personally, I think if we went to that rhythm on the acoustic, or that cadence, I suppose is the better word, on
Yeah.
on the guitar part, actually it might take away from that.
It might well do. Yeah, that was on the acoustic when I was writing it that I was
Yeah,
doing that, and kind of thinking along the lines of Shannon Hoon. At the end of those sort of B-side Blind Melon songs, he would do like really fast-paced guitar right at the
yeah,
end of a song to suddenly
yeah, yeah,
drop into a chickadiddle.
yep.
Um, it was just along those lines. But anyway, yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry. And what do you want in? So what do you want in on?
Could you just try playing it without the without that acoustic on,
Yep,
your new bass, the two guitars with the vocal as well,
yep.
um, and try just slamming that electric in on the what did you call it, the dismount bit that
Yep.
you like. Just try whacking it in there just to see the impact that it has,
Yep.
and then into the solo. Oh, there we go.
Turn the metronome off.
Sometime.
Hold on. Oh no, that's your. Okay, so that's your lead part. Do you want that in? Sorry,
Mm,
that's
I
what I'm hearing.
I don't think so at this point.
All right, sorry.
I
I'll try
think,
it at the start again.
and can you turn the vocal down a bit as well? It's far too loud. I don't like that vocal either. You can tell that I'm reading it off the paper
Yes.
and
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to get the vowel
Especially,
sounds in.
yeah, especially where you go to the. There's a certain word you hit. It's like, oh yeah, that's he's got his point there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's quite wordy. There's quite a lot of vowels, so it's quite hard to. You've got to learn the words and sing it properly. But yeah. Mm, yeah. I think that's the basic version,
The
isn't it?
song, right?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of nice space in there. You can
Yeah.
turn the vocal down a bit, and you can hear the. It's
Yes.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought about a piano maybe being in there. Just a normal piano playing something. Just something all the way through. But yeah,
I think
maybe,
I personally, where I would stand on it would be that all we need to do at this point is add accents
mm,
where you want them. That would be my take. Like,
hmm
yeah, we could add piano, but where exactly do we put it?
yeah,
Like, those are the questions to ask at this point, because I think as a basic mix, like I think the bass sound needs a bit of work,
yeah,
um, and the part probably needs either just fixing or replaying and done in time
yeah.
order.
There's a couple of with the wibble wibble, but just needs to
Yeah.
be
Or even,
redone.
and I have thought about that, whether that kind of frequency is right at the points where I've done it. I'm not sure that I'm 100% behind those
Hmm.
bits myself.
Yeah, I think so. I think that holds it all together. I think
Okay.
because you've got the choppy guitars back and forth, haven't you? That's the real rhythm.
Okay.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah, man, it's good. It's sounding nice.
yeah. The drum parts need some work in terms of, uh, again, accents.
Hmm.
Like it works perfectly, the mix of the percussion
Yeah.
and drums. And like I say, I've not done anything to that, including I haven't raised the volume of that because I've been playing to the click
Hmm.
for the most part. So
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
I've done nothing to them other than drop in the heavier part.
they sound fine.
There's no
Like
fills. There's nothing. Yeah, so
they
there's.
sound fine. So they're in the right place. Like
Hmm.
that's what I mean. Like this mix, untouched as
Hmm.
it is kind of in the right place.
Yeah.
Like you can now just do what the fuck you want to it. And
Uh,
that's why I got
but
confident.
yeah, I'd be easier for me to sort of set up in here and
To work.
and do some bits in here to do some work. Yeah, yeah,
So I should send you the project. Then you are going to be able to set up the
yeah,
man art.
yeah, yeah. I'll be able to have a little go.
So the only other thing was that was it not next week, the week after?
Mhm. Oh yeah, the 15th.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we are good to go for that weekend. Where are we? It's just whether or not I can come down on the Friday night or not. Because what happened? The cat had something, didn't she, to do on the Friday?
So we talked maybe about me coming down on like the Wednesday to use
Oh yeah, yeah.
because the shed would kind of be at a place where we might be able to use it.
Hopefully, yeah. The carpet should be going in that week.
Yeah. So if it's somewhere around that point, then I can because like there's no reason for me I could work from your house.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Okay, let's play that by ear then. I'll let you know because I should have a date set in the next week or so. Where are we? 31st. Yeah, so next week I should be finding out whether or not there's going to be carpet in there. But it'll be all painted and everything by then.
yeah,
It might not have the Ethernet done by then, depending
on what
on when this guy comes back.
But if it's got plugs, you could go back to the power line setup that you had
You
before.
you could, yeah, see how that
Get that set up.
gets on.
But cool. Well, yeah, and this house. But even if that doesn't like, if nothing happens in that week, then the whole weekend.
Yeah.
This week, I'm not going anywhere now until the Monday morning.
Okay, cool.
So which is what the 17th, I think. Is it the 17th?
It is 17th is the Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm here all through the weekend with an empty house, so we can
Okay.
do whatever.
Cool, man. Yeah, that would be awesome. We can do
All right.
some real time practicing. We should practice our set as well while I'm up there.
Yeah.
You know.
But we can set up in the front, like if you wanted to bring your PA,
Yep.
set up in the front room, have the live set up in there, and have the
Yep.
recording set up in here.
Have the Langley Wood setting still in
Yeah,
there.
and flip back and forth, basically.
Yeah. Cool. All right, man.
Come on. See you in a bit.
All right. See you
Bye.
soon, man. Bye. 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 Bye.